All right, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's session with Education USA Libya. So this is Amira, the Education USA advisor for Libya, and I'm so glad to have with us today Ms. Sarah Stackhouse from the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire. So I hope you will benefit a lot from today's session. If you are interested in attending medical school after getting your bachelor degree, you will find out everything you will need to know to make that dream a reality at today's session. Since we're talking about pre-med programs, financial aid opportunities, the application process, and career prospects. So stay tuned, take some notes, prepare your questions, and share the video with anyone who's interested in this field of study. So before we kick it off with Sarah, I'm going to start with a brief introduction about Education USA, because we always have new followers and new students who are interested in studying in the US. So what is Education USA and how can we help you? So Education USA is a US Department of State network. This means that we are your official source on US higher education. Our network promotes US higher education to students around the world, and many students seek advice from Regional Education USA advising before, during, and after the application process. So that's why there are around 430 advising centers located in more than 170 countries and territories. So the good thing about us is that we offer free, unbiased, accurate, and impartial information about anything you need to know to study in the United States. Now, the next slide, how can we help you? Now, number one, we offer free public info sessions about many topics related to US studies. It could be about the 5 steps to study in the US, sessions on personal statement, sessions on essay writing, visa process, and so on and so forth. We also host US college representatives and hold sessions about specific majors or sessions about financial aid and scholarship opportunities. And we also offer a wide range of virtual services to students and their parents. So if you want to get more details about the application process, or if you want to reach out to me, this is where you will find me. So just text me on WhatsApp or just send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to hold a meeting with you. Now, Education USA Libya is almost everywhere on social media. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And this is the official website of Education USA Network. If you want to get more details about the 5 steps to study in the US, or if you want to get more information about financial aid, or if you want to find your advising center. Now, welcome again. I'm going to turn it over now to our guest speaker. So feel free to type your questions and we will make sure to answer all of them at the end of the session. Over to you, Sarah.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. So my name is Sarah. I am the International Admissions Counselor here at the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire. And so my role today, kind of what we'll be talking through are different medical options. So not only talking about pre-med, but what are the other medical options that you can explore that might not necessarily be pre-med, and just kind of exploring the other health programs and the opportunities that you can study. The other bit we'll talk about, so I primarily work with undergraduate students, so we can talk about kind of what that pre-med process looks like and getting you all the way up to the point of where you're applying for med school. So I'm just going to give kind of the disclaimer up front. So I do not, we don't have a medical school, my specific university, so we don't do anything with medical admissions. So I won't necessarily be able to answer any questions specifically for that, but we can talk more the pre-med side, what that looks like, kind of the more the undergrad side of things. And then also the other options, you know, if you're like, oh, I might be thinking about medicine, I'm not quite sure, what are the other subjects that you can study? So I'm just going to try sharing my screen here quick. Awesome. Okay. Can you all see it okay? Awesome. Perfect. Okay. All right, so just a few things you should think about when you are planning to study medicine in the United States. Some of you might be like, yep, I'm 100% sure I want to become a doctor. Let's do this. Other people might be thinking, well, I know I love medicine or I love to help people, but I don't necessarily know what major I want to pursue. So just so you know, medicine is a graduate program in the United States, not an undergraduate program. So what that means is you're going to be applying to do a 4-year undergraduate degree in what we call so you're going to have to choose a major. Pre-medicine, a lot of students will say, oh, I'm studying pre-med, I'm studying pre-med. Well, pre-med's not a major. So that means you're also going to have to choose a major of study. The good news is, as you are going along, if you have, let's say maybe you want to study psychology, or maybe you want to study neuroscience, something like biology, chemistry, right? Those are typically what students will see, or will see kind of when students are studying pre-med. It's going to basically be like a sciencey major, mathy major, something like that. And the other important thing to keep in mind is you can actually choose um, basically any major of study and still do pre-med. So basically what the purpose of pre-med is you're going to make sure you're hitting all the requirements you need to apply to medical school. And so that means you're going to be hitting enough maths, enough sciences, whatever those medical schools are requiring, you're going to make sure that you're getting enough of those courses so that way you're good to be able to go ahead and apply for med school. So you can be a history major and study the pre-med. You can be studying, maybe you want to study Spanish, right? And you can be doing pre-med. You can be a business student. You can be a communications major. So it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go into your biology, chemistry, right? Because the majority of med school applicants, right, will have those types of majors. So sometimes it can be really important if you have a different passion, but you love medicine. There are different ways to think about kind of how you mix and match. You know, I always tell my students, your education's like a buffet. You can mix and match and put what you want on your plate, right? Between your majors, maybe you want a double major, there's minors, we have certificates, right? So there's going to be a lot of opportunities for you to mix and match and really to make your education what you want it to be. So the thing is after 4 years of undergraduate education, normally in the 4th year, students will take what we call the Mcat exam, MCAT, which is basically your medical entrance examination. So when you're taking that, then basically it takes about a year, right, to see if you get in, kind of the app process, how that works, and then deciding where you want to go. So normally students will take that opportunity, the 1-year gap, to work in a hospital, to do some shadowing, some volunteer work, things like that. And then once you get into med school, if that happens, we'll talk more about kind of the numbers of that in just a little bit. Then you basically have 4 years of med school. From your 4 years of med school, you do 2 years residency, which is basically like your internship, or you're actually physically going in the hospitals and you're practicing, right? So once you're done with that, if you want any type of specialization, you're going to be adding years onto that as well too. So if you have 8 years, 10 years just within the main medical school part, specialization can take anywhere 2 to 5 years. So some people will be in school again for another like you're talking med schools anywhere 10 to 15 years of schooling in the United States. So not only are you paying, right, for your time to be in med school for that long, but you're also paying in tuition money, right, that long as well too. So that's something really important to keep in mind. Students don't always recognize or realize that it takes such a long time to become a doctor in the United States. And so that's something you're going to want to know about on the front end, right? Am I willing to put in 10 years of my time, right? Do I have 10 years worth of tuition money to be able to pay for something like that? And what does that look like? So the one thing that's really important to keep in mind is med school in the United States is super competitive. So in the United States, your Education USA advisors, who are awesome, they will tell you, right, that there's over 4,000 US universities, colleges in the United States, right? Approximately 155 of those, around there, okay, of that 4,000 group, right, of universities and colleges, only 155 of them have a medical doctorate program, and 36 is a DO. So DO is a different type of doctor certificate. Both of them are licensed to practice in the United States. So if you look at over 4,000, right, And you get to this point and it's like, okay, so basically you have the opportunity to study at about 155 or so institutions. The other thing, once you get past from that, is how many of them accept international students, right? You might say, Sarah, what do you mean? Not all of them accept international students? That is correct. Only about, I would say, 60-ish, give or take, plus or minus, or so institutions accept international students into their medical programs. That's simply because we have so many US students that are competing, right, for those same seats. So only about 60 or so universities in the US will actually allow international students into their doctorate program to become a medical doctor. So if you think you have over 4,000 universities, oh, there's lots of opportunities for me, not super competitive, I can go anywhere I want, right? If you're planning for medical school, that's not going to be the case, right? If you're thinking over 4,000 universities and only 60, around 60, right? 60 to 65 or so of them accept international students, that's a very, very different picture, right? Of how competitive it's going to be. And then basically of those 60, some will be private, some will be government schools. So then you're also looking at tuition costs. How much will it cost me, right? It's going to be very, very expensive as well too. We talked a little bit about the Mcat already. And then basically, so med schools are going to be taking a look at 3 different GPAs that you have. So your overall GPA, your non-science GPA, and then your biochem, physics, math. So these are just some quick numbers of kind of what they look for in terms of numbers that students get who are able to kind of move on to that medical school. I know we talked about it can be expensive. Just how expensive, you might ask. So if you think about you're paying your undergraduate education, students will typically pay anywhere, normally I would say around 15 at the very, very minimum, including your housing, meals, tuition, everything like that, health insurance, daily expenses. 15,000 anywhere upward to 50, 60,000, depending where they plan to study, right, for your undergraduate. As you go on, right? And if you're thinking 10 to 15 years of schooling, you're going to have to pay for that. And medical school is quite expensive. We have in the US, even students graduate. Most people know that most medical practitioners, right, are going to graduate with some form of debt because they simply have so much tuition that they need to pay. In private institutions, 75% of medical students do graduate with debt, anywhere around $200 and $2,000 plus, right? So you're looking at quite a bit of money, quite a bit of time. And as we mentioned, it takes around 10 to 15 years. Now, I'm not telling you all this information to scare you or to flip your mind or to change your mind about anything. I'm just telling it to you simply so you can know the reality of the situation. A lot of students will get here and they're like, yep, I want to study pre-med, I want to become a doctor. And without realizing it takes 10 to 15 years. In some countries, you can become a doctor in 6 years, right? So every country has its own in how they, you know, be able to allow doctors to become doctors. What does that schooling look like? What does that formal recognition look like, right? To become a certified doctor and to be able to practice in the US. And so that's kind of our process here. I can't see all of your, I know we're live streaming on Facebook, so I'm sorry, I cannot see all of your questions. I'm sure you have a lot kind of after that information. So what we're going to talk about today, that's kind of what are other options? What are other options that you can study? Other fields you can go into, other majors you can think about, just to kind of broaden your horizon of all things medicine. So a lot of times when you ask someone, why do you want to become a doctor? They normally say, because I want to help people, right? So there's going to be a lot of different majors, right? That you can help people and you can do great things for the world and to help humanity. So we'll kind of move on to what pre-med is, right? So we talked about it a little bit before, but basically you can study any undergraduate major, as I mentioned, right? You're going to work with your advisor, which is going to be really, really important to make sure you are hitting all those requirements that you need to apply for the different med schools that you would like to apply to. And then the other really important thing is you're going to want to know what are the requirements to get into med school. So if any of you are super passionate about studying medicine in the United States, my biggest I guess, piece of advice or what I can tell you is you're going to want to contact those medical schools, right? What are the 60 schools that accept international students? And you can actually go online. You can search, right, which schools accept international students into their med program in the United States. And normally you can find a pretty good list. So as you're going along with that, it's going to be really important for you to know what are the requirements. So I always tell my students, if you're planning for medicine, you're going to want to think about what are the requirements for med school. So that way you can be super educated and know what type of a program you're going to want to look for an undergraduate program. Because if your end goal is med school, okay, so basically you can go through your undergrad saying, oh, I'm doing pre-med, take the Mcat and knock it into any medical school, right? That's an option that can happen. So the most important thing you're going to want to do is know what are those requirements now? What are those requirements for med school? So that way, during your undergraduate time, you can make sure you're doing enough research projects. You can make sure you get your internship, right? You can make sure your papers are pertaining to medical school. You're participating maybe in a government study abroad program that relates to medicine, or basically any volunteer opportunities you can seek out, right? What are those things that you're going to be able to do in your undergraduate education, right? That will set you apart when it comes time to apply for medical school. That way you're ready to rock and roll, you're all set, you have a very, very strong application for med school. So that's my biggest set of advice, is knowing what are the requirements required, right, for you to get into those specific med programs. Do some research, see which the best med programs are for international students in the United States. Take a look, see what they are, see where they're located. Talk to their admissions counselors, right, and ask them, what do I need to do in undergraduate time to be able to qualify for med school? What are the different things that I can do that can make my application stand out, right? So that way, when you're looking for an undergraduate program for your pre-med program, you know, right, what different things you're looking for. Because basically your pre-med is going to be the foundation for your med, right? So always remember that it's going to be your building blocks. It's going to be basically what school you choose for undergrad is going to determine, right? And all the opportunities, the things you seek out, what you decide to do is going to determine if you get into med school or not. So that's going to be a lot of pressure, right, for the undergraduate, and to try and find a good place that suits your needs, that suits basically everything that you're looking for. But that's going to be really, as I mentioned, it's your foundation, right? So you're going to really want to make sure you take enough time to understand what are the different things you're going to need to do. That way you can better educate yourself on choosing a good undergraduate program that can suit those needs. Other pre-professional programs, so pre-chiro, pre-dentistry, pre-engineering, law, occupational therapy, optometry, pharmacy, PT, physical therapy, right? Physician's assistant, veterinary if you're into animals. These are going to be other pre-professional health programs. Again, none of these are majors. So you're still going to have to choose a major that you want to study. And then if you think about it, like if you want to be super American, right? And you want to think about French fries and ketchup. So French fries is going to be your main major, right? What you're studying. The ketchup is basically going to be your pre-medicine, your pre-dentistry, your pre-engineering, making sure that you're hitting all those requirements, right? To be able to apply to your professional program. So what's going to be important about that is the fact that you will be going through the motions, right, of making sure you hit all of those requirements, but also at the same time, knowing that you have a major. Okay, so these are just some other pre-professional programs. Now, when we go on to think about other medical majors, as I kind of mentioned, some people just want to become a doctor because they say, I want to help people. Some people are specific that, oh, my grandmother passed away from cancer, so I want to cure cancer so no one else has to go through that. Right? So everyone has their own motivation, their own passion, their own inspiration for wanting to study a particular subject or a particular major, which is really important. And it's the best thing that I can say is before you decide what you want to study, you have to know yourself. And what I mean by that is you're going to want to do some reflection. You're going to do some internal work to sit down and think about, what is it that I want to study? What is it that I'm most passionate about? What is it that I love to do? And how do I want to use that passion to make the world a better place? Through what career path do I want to do that, right? So I'll ask this on Facebook. I won't be able to see any of the answers, but I always ask my students, what does every major have in common? Again, what does every major have in common? And so the answer to that is humanity, right? In some way, shape, or form, every major is touching humanity, trying to make it better, trying to make the world a better place for us. So if you think about, right, um, the different majors that you'll study, for example, business, people might say, how does that impact people? Well, business is basically trying to provide a good or service for people, right? If you think about languages, that's what enables easier communication, right? So we can talk, we can get to understand each other. If you think about the arts are meant to inspire, right? The creativity that we have and to share that with the world. If you think about, let's say, any of the sciences, right? Whether you're improving, things to do with the climate and the environment, if you're working on something like nursing, where you're helping take care of people literally every single day, if you want to think about law, right? What's the purpose of law? Is to bring justice, right, to certain situations and to fight for your rights. And so there's a lot of different things that you can think about as to how every single major is trying to make humanity better, right? Trying to provide a gooder service and just basically trying to make the world a better place. And so when I say it comes to choosing your major and what you're passionate about, it's important to think about how you want to use that major to make the world better, right? And so when you're thinking about health programs, you're really going to want to do that internal work. Why do I want to study that particular subject? What is it about that subject that I love? What am I most excited about that major? How do I want to use that major to make the world a better place, right? And so the one thing that's really beautiful about different health programs is that there's going to be a lot of overlap, right? Because you basically, no matter what you're doing in the healthcare field, any of these ones listed here, hopefully, right, you're going to be doing everything you can to help humanity, to take care of people, to help people to take care of themselves, right? So when you think about things like that, there can be a lot of inspiration and a lot of majors to choose from. And you're like, how am I supposed to choose one major? How do I know? And so it comes down to doing a lot of research to see what are these different majors? Why are they important? What do they actually do, right? What makes a nurse different than someone helping with exercise science and nutrition, right? What makes it different? So that's something that's really important to think about. So if you think about some of these majors here, athletic training, maybe you want to help the professional sports teams or the Olympians, right, in your country. If you look at clinical laboratory science, maybe you love working in a lab all day doing testing and trying to, working with the little dishes and the microscopes. And that's a super cool thing that someone needs to be there doing that research on the front end, right? So the doctors can make their decisions, so other people can be informed. They're discovering new things, you're doing research, right? If you love to do research, maybe that's a great one. For EMT paramedic, right? When there's emergency situations, someone needs to be there to rush the people to the hospital and to try and treat them along the way, right? And so the one thing that's really nice about a lot of these majors is it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go get, you don't have to study for 10 to 15 years to get your degree. So let's say if you're studying EMT paramedic in the United States, that can be a 9-month course, right? So basically 2 semesters, or maybe it's 2 years, right? So either it's 1 year, 2-year programs, and you can already be, working on the streets helping people. It doesn't mean it's going to have to take, right, 10 to 15 years. Let's say if you like hospital and healthcare administration, let's say if you're, I want to study business, but I also want to do something in healthcare, what should I do? Well, if you look at every hospital around you, it functions as a business, right? It has finances they need to take care of. They have marketing they have to do, right? They're competitive along with other hospitals in town, right? They need people to keep track of, basically all the management of everything that's going on every single day, making schedules, right? So basically, you're also going to need CRM, right? People to manage all of your customer relation software, emails that are going out, in their software systems, who's taking care of those? You need computer scientists and software engineers. So if you ever think like, oh, I work in the medical field, right? Well, they also need computer scientists. They're also going to need software engineers, right? So that's something that's really important to think about. If you think about nursing, right? The one thing that's really nice about nursing in the US is we have a variety of different programs. So one is an associate degree of nursing, which will be a 2-year nursing degree. We also have a bachelor of nursing, master's of nursing, right? So you have a bunch of different levels of nursing that you can do. If you're curious about nutrition, and helping people, right, as a personal trainer, making sure that they're making healthy choices and understanding the food that they put into their body, right? That can be a 2-year program at a technical or community college. If you think about public health right now with COVID, everything that's going on in the world, right? We're all relying on our public health officials to tell us, like, what is the status? What is going on? What do we need to do? What are the precautions we need to take? People that are experts within their field, right? So that's what public health can do. Even if you want to think about speech and language pathology, right? For people that have difficult speaking and you're trying to help them. We have what we call the CSD program, Communication Science and Disorders. Here in the US, typically that one will be about 6 years. So you do undergrad and then a 2-year or 3-year graduate program as well too. So these are just a very, very few number of majors that are different apart from your pre-med or becoming a doctor, right? And the good news is they don't all have to take 10 to 15 years. If you think about becoming a chiropractor, right? So people that have spine issues and you help to realign, right, their spines and their backs along with their head and neck and their whole body throughout. Again, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in school for 10 to 15 years. It's probably going to be around 7 years, right? In and out. Dentistry will be the same. If you love animals, veterinary will be the same thing. So there's a lot of other options for you to pursue just besides becoming a doctor, which I know is probably the most famous, right? I want to become a doctor. I want to become a doctor in the world. I travel normally to 17 plus countries a year. And I hear that all the time. That's what I hear, which is great. I'm so glad there's a lot of people that want to help people and do good in the world. I'm just here to kind of expose you to other options, to know that there are other fields you can go into that aren't necessarily going to take as long. They're not necessarily going to cost as much money, and they're just as much impactful in doing goodwill and helping humanity as becoming a doctor. So these are just a few other options you will see if you Google like other medical majors or other health science programs. You'll definitely find a lot of options online too that you can go through and see what are the different majors and what makes them different. I think that's the thing that's important. Because people might say, oh, well, they're all in the healthcare field. They ought to be, pretty similar, pretty the same. Well, if you want to talk about being a dentist versus being a chiropractor, that's quite different, right? So there's going to be a lot of specialization. There's going to be a lot of going through and knowing, right, your specific area of study. And that's the purpose of having majors. So you do come out with a subject that you are an expert on and being able to use that to help make the world better. The other things we'll just kind of talk about quick. I know our half an hour is pretty much up, and then we'll go ahead and open it up for questions. But the things you're going to want to think about when going into med school is looking at the accreditation, right? In your undergraduate programs, looking at the different student and professional organizations. So do they have a pre-health club? Do they have a nursing association? Do they have volunteering opportunities, right? What are the things that you're going to be able to do? Again, that will help you to build your resume to set you apart from other people. Are there opportunities for undergraduate research? So for example, my university, we're primarily undergrad. We do have a lot of health focused majors. So that's why I love to give this presentation, because we have a lot of students that come in for undergrad that again, just want to help people in their specific major of study. So we're going to have all of your pre-professional health programs. We're going to have a lot of your, like if you think of environmental public health, right? Things like that. So But basically, the point I was going to say is we're primarily an undergraduate institution. So I think we only have, so we're 10,700 students overall, which in the US, in Wisconsin, this is a medium-sized institution. And so if you look at that, and we have 10,000 undergraduate students. So that means all of our time, professors' time, research is going to be used for the undergraduate students, right? So all of the research opportunities, it's for you coming in as a first-year student, right? And we're only one of 2 universities in the United States that have an undergraduate research partnership with the Mayo Health System. And the Mayo Health System is one of the most recognized, world-renowned healthcare industries in the world. And so basically they're known for doing a lot of cancer research, for helping build one of the most established medical facilities in the United States. So we're very fortunate. Our students are able to research alongside their researchers, alongside their physicians to help, solve some of the world's biggest health issues. Which is something that we really love. So our undergraduate students are able to do research coming in their very first year. So definitely make sure when you're finding universities that will be a good fit for you, and you're trying to figure out, right, what are those different things I'm going to need to do in my undergraduate in order to be able to apply for med school or in order to be able to apply for dentist school, right? What are those things that are going to make me basically stand out? What's going to make my resume and cover letter and my application much stronger than the next person, right? And so when you think about those things, undergraduate research and joining different student organizations, leadership opportunities, volunteering, doing different internships, all of that stuff is going to be really important in helping make sure you can move on to that next level of education that you want to. So with that, I would just like to say thank you very much again. And so, yeah, we are a liberal arts university at the University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire. This is just a picture of campus, so that way I can say welcome to campus. But thank you very much for joining the session today. And I look forward to answering any questions that you have.
Right. Thank you so much, Sarah, for this wonderful session. And thank you for providing a lot of great resources about, pre-med programs and even other programs that some students could, take into consideration. So for anyone who's watching, remember a recorded version of the session will be available on our Facebook page, so you didn't miss anything. And now we're moving to the Q&A part. So make sure to type any questions you have. So Sarah, I'm going to start with the question that we have here in the Zoom, and then I'm going to move on to the questions that we received on our Facebook page. So we have a student who is asking, so the student has a bachelor's degree in medical technology, and he wants to study medicine in the US. So how would you guide the student?
Yeah, that's a great question. So again, kind of as mentioned, depending what major you study in the US, you can basically study pretty much anything. And as long as you're hitting the basic requirements to apply to med school, that's what's going to be the most important. So without being able to see kind of your transcripts and what courses you studied, my best advice would be to find which medical school you're interested in studying and get in touch with their admissions counselor, because you'll be able to ask them, okay, this is the course I completed, here's my transcripts. Am I missing anything to be able to apply? What other course will I need to do? Is there any preparatory things I need to do before I'm able to apply? What does that look like? So you do have a lot of people that have studied their bachelor's in other countries, and maybe any type of major and in between, and then they're like, yep, I want to go for medicine. So basically, I would just say the best next step you can take is finding which universities you're interested in applying to their med school, and then sending them an email and saying, hey, here's my situation, here's what I've studied, what do I need to do, what are my next steps? And they'll be able to advise you accordingly. So, and just remember, right? So we have over 4,000 universities in the US. Every single university has different admission requirements. Some require essays, some require letters of recommendation, some will require certain GPAs, some will require SAT, ACT, or GMAT, right? Or anything like that. So as you're looking to apply to medical school, I would just say definitely make sure you pick out maybe 5 or 6 that you're interested in. Email all of them. See what all their requirements are, because most likely there'll be a little bit of difference between what they're requiring for their admission process. So just because you email one university doesn't mean that's going to be the admission process for all universities. So you're going to want to make sure whatever the med school you're looking into, that you're asking them specifically what their requirements are, because most likely they'll be different than other schools.
Definitely, exactly. Thank you. And talking about the requirements and the differences between U.S. universities. So, and as you mentioned also before, medical schools are very expensive and they are very, very competitive. So, could you please share with us more details about the scholarships available at UWEC for international students who want to study pre-med programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So at UW Eau Claire, our tuition is roughly around 17,500 per year. And then we're able to offer the scholarships, $2,000 to $6,000 guaranteed. We also have honor scholarships. And then once you become a student, right, we have research scholarships as well too. We're going to have leadership scholarships, other international student scholarships. You'll be able to work on campus up to 20 hours a week. So there's a lot of great ways to be able to fund your studies. So with our first scholarship, you can have your tuition get to as low as 11,500 per year. And then of course, adding on any other scholarships that you get as well too. So, but yeah, definitely we are open for admission for the pre-med. We're accepting applications for fall. And so when you apply, you're actually choosing a major, as I mentioned. So you're going to do something like a biology, a chemistry, psychology, neuroscience, history, whatever major it is. So you're still going to be choosing a major. And kind of when you get on campus, then you'll talk with your academic advisor to say, yep, I want to do pre-med. What else do I need to do? So that's kind of going to be what that process is. But yes, definitely we do have scholarships for international students. Absolutely.
Is University of Wisconsin test optional?
So yes, the University of Wisconsin Eau Claire, we are test optional. We do not require ACT or SAT for international students. We don't require them for scholarships as well. So typically for the scholarships, we look at 4 criteria. The very first thing is going to be your grades or your academics. Secondly, we look at a resume or basically like cover letter explaining all your different activities that you've done, volunteering, things like that, any clubs you've been in. There'll be an essay question as well too for you to kind of let us know a little bit more about yourself, and then financial need as well. So it'll be merit-based as well as financial based too.
Perfect. Okay. So let me move on to the next question I received from Asma on our Facebook page. And she said, should
Yeah.
I double major to better my chances of getting in med school?
Awesome. It's a really great question. So I'm always kind of hesitant to answer this because every student's their own, right? And what their path looks like, what type of academics they can handle. But I would say if you ever have the chance to double major, absolutely go for it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to cost you more time or money. You're able to show, right, the medical officers that you're able to handle rigorous courses, right? That you can handle a lot of studying, that you love to study, maybe have different passions as well too. So I'm all for. So basically, our motto at the university is what we call the power of A-N-D. And so rather than having to choose, oh, should I study psychology or neuroscience? Or should I study communications or biology? We really empower students to be able to find their and that comes with being able to double major or having minors as well too. So my best advice would be, yes, absolutely go for double majoring if you can handle it. If you have the subjects that you'd love to study, and I think that will enhance any application going forward for grad school, no matter which program you're looking to study.
Very interesting. I like the end thing.
Yeah,
It makes it
it's
special.
applicable. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
applicable not only in education, but also in our own lives,
Yes, I
right?
know, and
When,
that's why I like
yep.
it. Okay, wonderful. Now, the next question is coming from the same student, and she said,
Okay.
can pre-med requirements be taken at community colleges?
Absolutely. I would say definitely look at your community colleges, your technical colleges to seeing a lot of times they're going to be your basic, like your biologies, your chemistries, things like that, some math classes. I can't say specifically all of them will be able to, but you do have a lot of also like 4-year community colleges. So it just kind of depends which programs you're studying and what you're looking to go into. But definitely, that's why I said the first thing you're going to want to do, besides looking internally, seeing what do I want to study, why do I want to study it, the next thing you're going to want to do is contacting those grad schools, or even just looking on their website. What are those requirements for medicine? What do I need to study? And if your community college that you're looking for offers all of those courses, then yes, absolutely, you'll be able to take a look at those. I will say typically students will have a bachelor's degree as they are going into your medical school. So typically, even if you go to a 2-year program, a lot of students will transfer to a 4-year once they're done. But starting at a community college, or if the community college has a 4-year pre-med program, then absolutely you can do that as well too.
Okay. And the last question is about the Mcat. So a student is asking, when should students take the Mcat? So, and are there any like prep courses, let's say at the end of the bachelor's degree for MCAT?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So typically students will take it in their last year of study, normally towards the end of the year, because basically you're trying to make sure you hit that admission cycle, right? So normally, as you know, you're applying basically a year in advance for your course that would start the following year. So making sure you're hitting all of those dates and deadlines, things like that will be important. So that's one basic thing that you're going to be looking at, and kind of determining when you'll take the MCAT and any preparatory work that you need to do. One thing that's nice at our university, and I'm sure other universities have it as well too, is it's basically like a health office that's coaching all of the pre-professional health students, whether it's pre-dentistry, pre-veterinary or pre-med. Basically, they're going to be making sure and helping you to take a look at what are those requirements, and having people in those professional fields come to talk to you, looking at what those grad schools are, where are they, what are their admission requirements, and how are you making sure you're setting yourself up for success with the different opportunities, whether it's internships or volunteering or the student clubs and organizations you're part of. All of that will be important. We have an office dedicated to make sure, right, you're putting the best application that you can together in order to submit for any of those pre-professional health programs.
Okay, so we're done with the questions, and I think also we're done with the session. So I'd like to thank you again, Sarah, for joining us today and for providing everything for our audiences. And regarding the people who are following us, if you still have any specific questions related to pre-med programs or any other programs, feel free to reach out to Sarah. So Sarah, if you would like to share your contact information, whether by sharing screen or just typing here in the chat. And if you have any other questions related to studying in the US in general, make sure of course, to reach out to me, or if you are following us from a different country, make sure to reach out to the advisor of your country. Thank you again, everyone, for your time and for your wonderful questions. And always keep an eye on our Facebook page and follow our upcoming events.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.